Hello, this is the Dove Lady here. I'm about to tell the Dove story, which I have already done this in the past, but it was when I only had short times to be on the air, and so each segment was about 10 or 15 minutes, and it took 3 to get it all in. So I thought, well, why don't I tell it again? And to tell it, I have to begin with this lady right here, Peace Pilgrim. And she was the inspiration for the story that was given to me by Spirit back in 1998. She walked thousands of miles for peace and vowed to walk until given shelter and fast until given food. In a significant way, her story started me on my journey to find my purpose. Peace knew her purpose. I never even heard of her until one day when I was browsing about in a thrift store looking at their book section. I came across a book about Peace Pilgrim. In the back of the book was the address for the Peace Pilgrim Center, and I was happy to see that this center was in the city I lived in, and so I decided to go there and check it out. Actually, it was not a center in the sense that it was a big public place, but was a very modest home of 2 people, Ann and John Rush, who ran this center out of their own home. They had converted their garage to house all of the many books they sent out free of charge to anyone who asked. I began to frequent their home, for there was always very interesting people there, and I felt so welcome. One day at the Peace Pilgrim Center, there was a woman who was wearing around her neck a necklace consisting of 1,000 cranes, all folded so tiny, and all colors of the rainbow. This lady took the time to show me how to fold the crane. Now this is a picture of someone folding them just as tiny as that lady's. I wish I could remember her name. But she was very patient and showed me how to fold these in a little bigger stage than this, because this is how tiny you have to get them to get 1,000 of them onto a necklace to wear. And she was wearing one that was made of little cranes of all different colors, and it was very beautiful. And then I learned, there's a Peace Pilgrim walking. Then I learned about this lady, this young girl, Sadeko, and the 1,000 cranes. And that's what I learned from the lady who showed me how to fold the crane. The story of this little girl is true. It was a sad story, but it has the impetus of getting people to think, I want peace in this world. Now you see, this is the folded crane here. And she was exposed to the bomb in Hiroshima that affected so many of the people. And she was only just like a toddler when that went off. And she was exposed to the radiation. And when she was about 10 years old, she came down with what they called the bomb disease, which was a kind of leukemia that was fatal. Most people, well, everyone at that time, they never overcame it. They would die if they got the bomb disease. And she got it when she was about 10 years old. And she was someone who loved to run. She loved to run little relay races with her friends. And her friend told her a story about folding the crane. She said, if you fold this crane and you fold 1,000 of them, you can have any wish you want granted. Of course, she wanted to live. She really did want to live, so she started folding cranes. And she folded over 600 of them before she became too ill to fold and had to go into the hospital, where she folded a few more, and her brother would hang them from the ceiling in the hospital, little birds all hanging down all over the room. And she didn't quite get to 1,000, and she did pass away. But her struggle to live and fold those cranes was something that caught the attention of so many people, and her classmates folded the remaining a number to make it 1,000, and they buried her with those cranes. And they built a monument to Sadeko because of her effort to be well and not die from the bomb disease, and fold those cranes and have some kind of belief that there is some way we can promote peace in the world. Well, it made her very popular there in Japan, and people all over the world send folded cranes to this monument that I'm showing you here. They just drape it with the thousands of cranes that are folded. So this lady that told me the story of Sadako, which I had never heard before either, and she showed me how to fold it 7 times. She wasn't going to let me off until I could fold it on my own. And it took her showing me 7 different times before I remembered all the steps. And so I thought when I got home, I'm going to forget those 7 steps because it might be a while before I fold the crane again. So I put all the steps on different pieces of paper in a notebook. And I promised myself someday I would have some fun folding cranes again. And I would get that notebook out, and that would be my reminder of how the folds were. So that day came. I was doing a lot of busy work that day, really getting me almost nowhere. And I thought, I'll just play. And Spirit was talking to me that day and saying, I can teach you just as much through fun as through hard work. And I got that notebook out. There's another picture of her. I got the notebook out that had all the folds. And right away, through automatic writing, I started writing on each page alongside each portrait of each picture of how to fold the crane. But I was told that we would call it the dove. And a story just started writing itself. I mean, I had no thought in what I was writing. It just poured forth from my hand rather fast. And the most beautiful story emerged. And I want to read that to you now and show you how to fold that dove or crane. You can call it either one. But what you do is you start out with a square piece of paper. I've got this beautiful piece of paper here. And you fold it from corner to corner until you have the pyramid. Now I'm going to be reading the words. I've got them written out. And I will tell you, these are the words that were given to me by Spirit. And when I say some that are not, I'll tell you when they're not. Because I do a little explaining of it as I tell it. This square, and these are God's words, this square piece of paper represents everything that can be seen. Wait a minute. This is my explanation. It represents yourself, the trees, the animals, the insects, the ocean, the hills, the moon, things visible and things invisible, all that is. And think of it as all that is. And now God's words were this. We start out with an empty sheet. What we make out of it is a flying dove. And with the dove, we will soar to heights not reached before. Now you fold this from this piece of paper, and as you do, you'll take a little trip back with me through time. You see this square, all that is, and these are my words, wanted to look at itself from the viewpoint of being a smaller part of itself, such as you and me, looking at our whole self. So, all that is, put a piece of itself into everything that is. This is a secret not many understand. We are one another. And now, God's words again, and my book's trying to fall. Okay. Now, this is your chance to make of yourself a lot of character, to live a life and see and hear and taste and smell and touch a thing called physicality. I want to turn the camera over to the book where I'm reading this from. I'll get my light just right. Now for my words. We came to Earth to experience life in a physical body. so that we might be able to recognize in one another different parts of all that is. And so now you fold this into another triangle, only smaller, and it's like a butterfly. It can flap its wings when you add a little energy to it. And this is how we were at first, like butterflies. Now to turn the page. And these are God's words again. Life is a lot like the pyramid. It begins at the top and it works its way down to encompass the whole. You don't know what is to be the final outcome of your searching. You move onward and you overcome all of the obstacles in your way as you increase yourself, replacing your old for the new, coming and going on your journey into the expansion of yourself. Now for my words. In a way, it is like God is using you and me and all things in order to experience and influence the world. We are here to be love to one another and to take care of our earth. This is how we grow, to become more and more like all that is. God's words again. You use all of the skills that you possess in order to make new worlds, in order to enlarge your boundaries. You are macrocosm in your expanded state. You deem the world as though it were all you. Before you lay a wilderness of excitement that you want to decrease your allness in order to appreciate. You decide to become less than your wholeness, so you fold in upon yourself, making the microcosm. And at this point is where you fold into this smaller pyramid, which is also like a butterfly. So fold that square of paper from corner to corner. This pyramid shape represents all that is, decreasing its size and multiplying into many, many pieces to send into the world of form, which our world is. Now God's words. The folded self is your own self, only in its consciousness. It does not see itself as the macrocosm it once knew itself to be. While the macrocosm knows its microcosm self, the microcosm goes into forgetfulness of all that it is. The microcosm wants to experience what it is not in order to know itself. In an experience known as the physical, the mental, and the spiritual, as a trinity, a three-in-one, a balance, a proper application of all its components. Now my words, you are the microcosm, and all that is the macrocosm. In a way, it is like saying that we are part of the whole and whole of the part. For the whole, all that is within us, just as the giant oak tree is in the tiny acorn. You are important to all that is, just as a drop of water is to the ocean. For the ocean would not be an ocean were it not for the billions of tiny drops of water. The beach would not be the beach if not for the billions of tiny grains of sand. Okay, now we're still in this stage, the smaller pyramid. So the pyramid can believe in itself in the microcosm stage. Far smaller and less experience can achieve the ultimate of which it came from. And as the altered ego set in to fold the folded I am ego, we were all in the same image as what we came from, still the same creators. Still creating, still calling forth on another level, calling forth smaller thoughts, yet knowing that we were a lot more than we were consciously aware of being. We started carrying ourselves around with our words, creating a form unlike the pyramid we came forth from. And this is what we did as a little pyramid, as a little butterfly. We split because we had so many different opinions about who we were. And when you split the wings of the butterfly, they fold, and you get, and I will use another piece of paper that's already folded there, you get the box. And you see the box is no longer looking like a pyramid. Since we are made in the image of all that is, we too can create. We are creating all the time, whether we know we are or not. We are creating with our words. We are creating with our imagination. We have been given, excuse me, I gotta take a drink of water here. My videos are not perfect, but they're the best I can do. We are creating with our words. We are creating with our imagination. We have been given free will to create whatever we want to, but most of us have forgotten how to create like all that is creates, calling all things good. We started comparing and complaining so much that soon we lost our ability to fly like a butterfly. Naturally, my book has to fall over. We began to flatten ourselves out as though we could not fly. We caused ourselves to split into opposites in our effort to maintain a balance, for our words were creating for us many things which would get us into a state of dependency. And these are God's words, by the way. We needed more drama in which to create, and so we opened ourselves up to the many voices we heard coming into our minds from the astral plane. So now you take the butterfly wings and cause them to flatten me again and split into themselves. This creates the box. Now we are boxes, but boxes that talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And see there inside of us? There's the divided tongue, the split tongue, which is another way of saying that what we say is not what we always do. Like the Indian said of white man, your talk doesn't match your walk. Promises, promises. Mm-hmm. We began to define and to educate ourselves in such a way that we now had boundaries. These are God's words again. Everything must square with everything else, for the truth we thought was something that could be explained, defined, regulated, required. I have a little drawing here. It's not too good, but it's a box. He's the preacher, and all the people in the congregation are reading their holy books and listening to him say things like, "Now, we know our faith is the only true understanding because it says right here that it is." Look at your paper now. It has become the box, and now it cannot fly. But it can still talk very much, still find things it does not like about other boxes. It is separating into many kinds of boxes, all of them thinking that they are the most pleasing to all that is. Look inside the box at the split tongue. It is like the Indian said about white man. He talks with divided tongue, which means that a person talks a good talk, but he does not do as he talks. Now to the next page. Okay, God's words again. Kind of zoom in on that. Yes, and these are God's words. Yes, we were very good at letting our forms take control. We squared away all of our parameters and flattened ourselves out as we bowed down to systems and theories and doctrines and creeds. We believed in our view of things, and another's view became something we labeled sinful, blasphemous, without of ourselves. And sometimes we would even burn, loot, and kill in order to keep our form going. We were, and now these are my words again, at the bottom here of the page. We were very good, and we were very emotional, and often very scared of one another. It was because we would not allow others to be different than ourselves, especially when it came to our religions. We fought many wars, saying that all that is was on our side. We were not being like all that is, but were experiencing what it was like to feel hatred and jealousy and greed. It wasn't very fun. And now God's words. When before we were like a butterfly winging our way, going with the flow. We further boxed ourselves in, making a lot of boxes of first one and then another theory. We were looking for our wholeness, but in doing this, we extracted formulas and rituals and sacrifices and all manner of devices we put into place. Now my words. Sometimes we remembered faintly that we once could fly. We wanted to fly again, but we were so caught up in our little boxes, it was hard to think outside of the box, or it was important, we were told, to conform to what was expected of you. And now God's words again. When we made all those little boxes, we further boxed ourselves in when we realized that we were not free, that we were meeting our neighbor and trying to box them into a pattern as we ourselves were in. We became aware of the many boxes piling up everywhere. Talking became our favorite pastime, and we defended our box against another's boxed opinion. But we were all caught up in a box. I have a picture there there's two boxes outside of this boxed one right here who is getting kind of cramped there. And he's saying, "Come to my church." And the other one's saying, "I'm not sure if it's right for me." And now for my words on this page. Some of us could take being in a box and felt comfortable and safe and saved from hell inside these boxes. Others of us started to want out of the box and started trying out first one box and then another, always trying to remember something. They were trying to remember who they were before they became caught up in a box. They did not know it, but they wanted to fly, because deep inside themselves there was some memory of happier days and flying. Okay. Now, this next picture, I really wish I had someone who would illustrate this book for me. And maybe we could get it published. But this is a boxed preacher again talking to his congregation, saying, "Do this or do that, or you should, or you must, or you ought." And now for God's words. We could give you rules and regulations. We could give you rituals and formulas. The form became so binding that many of us began to balk. Many of us told others that we could not be boxed in any longer. We wanted to go against the rules and the theories that taught us that the rules must be followed, that the do's and the don'ts were the truth that would set us free. And yet, we were not free. And now for my words. Something vital was missing that was not found in all of the dogmas and rituals. Many felt from deep in their heart that they had to find all that is within their own selves. So they began to look into everything about empowering their own selves. So this is where, I will show you a fold now. This is where the square starts folding into the center. Let me get it up here where you can see it. This was the square, and you fold it to the center on one side, and you fold into the center on the other side, and then you look like a kite. And in this picture, these are boxes turning into kites and flying off, looking into everything, wherever the wind would blow them. Anyway, so this part is God's words. So many of us started folding in. We started to change the shape we were in, to streamline ourselves, so to speak, for it would not allow us freedom to stay in our boxes. We thought about the part of us known as spirit. We allowed our spirit to soar as we folded our sides into the very heart. We started to feel lighter, and we imagined that we could actually fly. See, there's a kite. Now you take the box shape, fold in the sides to the center like making a kite. This represents some of the boxes turning into kites, which is to say, New Agers. They were trying to balance their mental and emotional and physical bodies, and very often the freedom they experienced gave them the feeling that they could fly. Next page. God's words again. We wanted to soar, but we were needing to bring about a change in our thinking, mental self, and a change in our physical. We defined, yet again, a new kind of knowing, a new kind of physical exercise that would align our spirit to that of our mind and body. We talked of how we would soar and would create a wonderful world by our ambition to take a further step. And this picture is supposedly is a group of people meeting in what they call workshops. And some are sitting on the couch and some are sitting on the floor with their legs crossed, which I tried doing and it's very difficult. You get very tired. And the workshop teacher is telling us all about this new way of being spiritual. So the kite people began to gather about them a lot of information about all kinds of things that would help them to grow closer to all that is. They met in houses and in what they called workshops, and they talked about the wonderful life that was to be when they could raise their vibrations higher. Now God's words. In reaching for the truth, we pulled out all of the restraints and became aware of our need to go on seeking our truth. As we reformed and refashioned ourselves by still yet another set of rules and formulas and rituals and dogma, we were sailing in our lofty place so sure that we had risen above the others still on the ground. But in our ascension, we felt the tug of the string holding us to the earth, pulling us down so often. For they were our brothers, they were part of ourselves, and how could we rise without them? And those were God's words on that page. Yet, here's mine, yet just like the boxes going from one box to another, the kites also formed many schools of thought about what to do and what to believe. The boxes were very concerned about the kites, thinking that how they believed meant they were going to miss out on heaven. And sometimes there was much anger and confusion between the boxes and the kites. And they had their little signs. You can't see this, but the kites are saying, "Save the trees, save the whales." And the boxes on the ground pulling their strings, because they're their own family members, some of these. "Save the New Agers, save the pagans." Everybody wants to save something. Next page, and God's words again. And yet, they were the mountain in our way of ascension. We had tried to push the mountain down, but it would not stay down. Then we began to open up our heart center to look at the square again and see if we could not love as we wanted to be loved, to accept as we wanted to be accepted. And this is where you push down the mountain. That same pyramid you can see that we represented all that is with. We pushed it down, but it kept popping up. So finally we opened up and we began to change our shape again. Now, I'll throw this one to the side and show you this one because it has been opened on both sides. At one point, it looked like a boat. And now the kite people had thought that the reason they were not rising higher was because the boxes that seemed to be the mountain in their way, because of them. These are my words. Then there came the day when many of them realized, hey, we need to love our brothers and sisters just as they are, and love them and see them as perfect, for do we not also want to be loved and accepted as we are by them? So we must first give in order to receive the same. God's words again, next page. And in taking our brothers into our hearts, we began to shine so bright. We were like a diamond catching the light and reflecting the light from our many facets. We could see that we had other shapes and other structures, some shaped a little different and yet all a part of the whole diamond. Each facet worked at reflecting the light in conjunction to a fellow faceter. Each was important, each was vital, for when we could see our wholeness from beyond our limited view, we saw the complete diamond. Now for my words. So it happened that both the boxes and the kites began to really love one another, not just talk about it, but to do it. They began to see the light that was in their fellow man, and how each was important in the larger picture of our wholeness in all that is. We saw ourselves as facets of a huge diamond, some of us shaped up differently, but that we were all reflected off of one another and made a beautiful light reflection. The next one is where you see this sort of as a boat. We became like, and these are God's words, we became like unto a boat. And we took on all those who wanted our love and acceptance. And our opening up to love became that which changed us yet again. For we were no longer like a kite fastened to the ground. Okay. Now the diamond takes on the shape of the boat. It is the unconditional love boat stage of the dove. There is to be a flood of love coming over the land, and all who are welcome to get aboard the UL boats, which stands for unconditional love. No one would be judged because of their different lifestyles, how they fix their hair, how they dress, their sexuality, their skin color, or any other difference that used to cause division. Okay, now you hold it up like this and see this as like a rocket. And I tried to draw a little picture of a rocket, a spacecraft. These are God's words. We imagined that we were complete now, that we could ascend to greater heights, but we found that we were not lifting off as yet. What was holding us down? What was there that we had not done? We had taken our brothers into our hearts. We had given up the dogmas, the rituals, the theories. Okay, now for my words. So there we were, so sure that we were ready to fly off into the heavens among the stars. But we were grounded still. What was holding us back? We needed to know. There was still more to learn. We were now finally in the place where we could learn, and there was much that we needed to learn about ourselves. Okay, now this is the fat ballerinas. When you take the dove at this section, you see she's like a fat ballerina, if you can see this. I got a picture of it here. She can't kick her legs very high, see? They don't go high because they're too fat. She's got to have a little help here. And now God's words. We were shining brightly, reflecting the light of the sun. We were about to dance for joy, and yet we felt a heaviness in our body. Our legs were weighted down. We didn't know that we still had dross. Dross was in our diamond, and we knew that we wanted to clear this dross, so drastic measures must be taken. I'm going to go into the next page without reading my words about that. More of God's words. We needed help, for we had so much to learn and so much to unlearn. So we stood up on our feet and we invited our brothers we had not known of from places far removed by time and space. We sought our space brothers to help us to ascend. Now, when I've told this dove story to people, I lose them at this page. They don't want to believe that we have space brothers. Now for my words under that. We were like a computer that needed to download, yet there was so much that must first be deleted before we could accommodate the downloading. There was much we had to unlearn. We needed help from those who are our space brothers. No longer were we afraid of our brothers from other planets. We found that they had always been among us and helping us and had been waiting for the day when we would give up the hate and the fear. So, with their help, we began a restructuring of our basic form. And these are God's words. And there's the train coming back. New folds were called for, which did trim our legs that had been so heavy. We discovered that we were lighter, and we were dancing. We were letting go of our fear and finding out a secret about ourselves. And this is where you fold in the sides to the middle, in half, one half. I'm not going to do it all the way with this one because I already have one done. When you fold those legs, oh wow, now see, she can dance, and or he or all of us, we can dance and lift our legs up high. They showed us how to lose the density that our bodies had accumulated. We found that we were lighter and we were dancing more and we're letting go of our fear. We were finding out a great secret about ourselves. For when you fold the legs of the ballerina into half, you become the torch. Now we were discovering that the light could shine from us and that we were full of light, for we were all made from that same square of paper, that all that is one God. And this next picture is just my book is trying to fall. God's words again. We were discovering that we were ourselves the light, that it came from within our own selves. The more we let go of dross, the more and more light came from us, extending like a searchlight, a beacon of light, to warn all sailors of where the rocks were that were to be avoided. We were just like a torch, and we allowed our light to so shine that others could see. Now I've got a picture of this at the torch stage, and this is like a harbor, a way to a harbor, but there's big rocks called judgment, condemnation, criticism, gossip, and hatred. Now for my words on that page. We did not just reflect the light, we also were the light, for all that is had put a small ember of light within each of us, and we had allowed it to grow and grow. Now we could be like all that is. We could show all we would meet from now on how that the rocks that sink ships are called judgment, condemnation, criticism, envy, gossip, hatred, etc. Now for God's words again. We had other brothers who looked at us now, shining so brightly and knowing ourselves to be the very image and likeness of our Creator. For we had seen our wholeness, our oneness, and our lack of fear had left us shining with love. For love, unconditional love, was what we were. And so we folded both forward and backward. Now you see, I'll show you that fold. This is the fold that is the torch. But when you fold forward, and this is my spin on it, folding forward means not fearing the future, trusting God that the future's in His hands and that we're okay. And the folding backward is letting go of all the old hatreds and fears and enmity between peoples in the past. And then you become this. At this stage, you are the angel stage, and the angel points the way. Okay, next page. And we looked like angels to those, these are God's words, we looked like angels to those who looked upon us. We wanted to point the way so that others would learn about unconditional love. So we folded yet again and brought our 4 points all together. See, the angel points the way. See, all the points have to point in the same direction, so you pull them up from the back. And I have this already done, so I'll put this one aside and show you the one That's the wrong one. One's already done. Still got the wrong one. When you fold those points up together, you get the crown. And this means you can be a king and rule. Now listen to God's words about this. And we looked like angels to those who looked upon us. We wanted to point the way so that others would learn about unconditional love. I think I already read this. So we folded yet again and brought our 4 points all together. We now had become the crown. We thought about this. We were kings, rulers. We had won our crown. With the forward and the backward fold, we came to the stage of the dove called the angel stage. We were just like angels, for angels do always do the will of all that is, and that is what we now do. Then there is the next fold where you bring all the points together. This makes the crown. We could now wear a crown. We were kings. We could rule. We had to think about this. And now for God's words again. So many wanted to have a king once so long ago. We had been told you need no king, but we were appointed one anyway, and there began to be many kingdoms and many rulers and wars and taxes and loss of freedom. We thought of how we had one more thing to do, for wearing a crown did not make us any more special than anyone else. Our crowns were heavy on our heads. It was not necessary to rule, we said. Once we had wanted to rule one another, even the stars and the moon and the sun. So we gathered all the crowns together and stripped them of their jewels, and yet again we folded ourselves like a book. And when you fold it again, you will fold it, I say like a book, in that you fold it forward and you fold it backwards. And now you're no longer a crown, you are a seed. We realized that we didn't need to wear a crown, for no one of us wanted to rule over another one. We remembered days of old, when we had made for ourselves a king, and how after that things had gotten worse. So we realized that all that is does not rule. All that is a creating God, and we were co-creators with all that is. And we became the seed. And this is God's words again. So we just sort of stretched ourselves, and we discovered that we had found the dove. The dove had descended and ascended too, and we were sprouting from our middle, and it was a head and a tail that wanted to emerge. And so now you see the head and the tail in the seed. You're going to just simply gently open it up. And there you will see, and I've already got one folded, and here it is. I'm prepared here. Here's the dove. But this is not the end of the story. Now you take the crown, fold it both forward and backwards like a book, closing both ways. In the seed stage, it's ready to sprout, a head and a tail. You gently pull the flaps down, and there you have the dove. And do you see what is in the middle of it? It's the pyramid. And the pyramid we thought was the mountain in our road at one time, but it has been centering us all along. I call it like Big Bird arising out of the ashes. I also call this stage like the phoenix arising from the ashes. Now, we were love. We were home. We could fly. We could soar. And no more was there any heavy dross or no strings attached. And before us stretched an endless sky. These are God's words. We're soaring still. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of us, and we know that we are one. And we know our direction, more of God's words. When we fly home, we all go at the same time. You know, the story never ends. It just goes on and on, my friend. One day I started writing it knowing what it was, and I continue writing it forever, just because I am. There's no more fear, no more reason for nation and families to war with one another. Welcome aboard the spaceship Earth is moving through, and into view is its new crew. And I took the liberty at this stage to say that I would people this first spacecraft that goes up with little children, because little children are not afraid and they can show us the way. And I wrote on there, hey kids, maybe we will be the first to ride a spaceship to show the grown-ups that there is nothing to fear. And I called this spaceship Earth No Fear. Our biggest challenge is simple. It is to have no fear and to be happy. The Bible says in many places, fear not, and in all things rejoice. And again, I say rejoice. We must be trusting as a child, not childish, but childlike in having faith in God, in ourselves, in one another. More of God's words. For earth is one in love right now. Earth is touching the outer sphere of which the darkness disappears, and oneness is known to all the galaxies. For Earth has come to light the way, to take us forward and onward as a lead planet going beyond the central sun, going beyond the spiritual to the ethers, to the etheric, to the others. And all of the space brothers gather around to watch the bride, this more of God's words, as she enters the church where love is waiting to claim the bride. After staying out of sight for so long now, while preparations and fancy trimmings and host and hostess prepare for the wedding, the groom awaits his lovely bride with anticipation, for she is to claim the heart of which he has awaited his princess in shining ornaments. And now some of my words on this page I'll read. A princess in shining ornaments sure is better than a prince in shining armor. Yet there was the day when that was what was needed. It is to be honored, all of the princes who's ever marched off to war. Now, however, we are entering the day when the law of the jungle no longer applies. No more will the saying be the survival of the fittest, but the reign of the most loving. And he has awaited his princes in shining ornaments to come and take, God's words again, come and take not by violence and not by words, but by the feeling of great anger and anguish, being born and raised out of its conquering past when only it would rule. Because we've had days when love just wouldn't work because it wasn't time yet. And the last page of this book, the heavens rejoice. The wedding, well, almost the last page. These are God's words again, too. The wedding banquet tables are prepared for a feast of that things well refined, for anger and anguish are purified. In my words, we are all of us the bride, and spirit is about to enter into matter fully. And the last that God spoke when this was finished, almost the last, you are ready now to take another evolution of which you long for. It is an evolution of which many others are taking together with you. For your feelings are all that have mattered. Your feelings are all that you ever need to know what is the path. The God that you are just has to grow, and fear must not hold you back, for fear is only false evidence appearing real. You need not fear now, for you are a God, and you do share power with, not power over. The God and the goddess are one. Okay, and so that is the dove story. I got it all in one video. I love this story. It was the most remarkable thing that happened to me was the getting this story. I'll show you a few things that I have made. When you lay down 16 of the angel stage down, you make a portal. You make a pretty little sun-looking portal. And it takes 16 exactly to go all the way around. And see, we can push through a portal like this. See, you can put your finger right through and push right through it. And when you have it at the stage called the diamond stage, you can put them together and make other things. Like I make this thing that's made with 12 flowers of this. I'm going to have to get way back to show it to you. I call it Freedom Star. There's 32 stars, but it's 12 flowers that you put together, and you turn the whole thing inside out and upside down. Put the last two in backward, and you have what is I call the Freedom Star, because that's what Nikola Tesla wanted the Earth to be called. He wanted to light the whole world up and call it Freedom Star. He wanted to give us free energy. And I think of energy, I think of God. One last thing, the crown. You can make a crown with 144 of these. And I don't have any makeup on, so I'm not going to show you it on me. I'm looking kind of drab today. But this is made out of that same stage of the dove, or the crane if you prefer. And you put them together so, and you have a crown that you can wear. Although people will stare at you when you walk around with a crown on your head. There's one other thing, and I'm going to take you over to it. I call it the threefold flame. It is 3 of the diamond stage put together, and it looks sort of like a flame to me. The threefold flame. I made it this violet color because the violet light is coming in now, and this is just a good color for it. The threefold flame. The 3 in 1, the mental and the physical and the spiritual all united. So I'm going to end this now. I'm about to run out of time anyway, but I did get it all in, and this is the Dove Lady talking to you now, and I'll talk to you again later. Bye-bye.